Hello everyone. It's been a long time since we've been together, and it's my joy to be with you on this Sunday morning. So, my talk today is entitled, Are We There Yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So, if I could see you all, there'd be a show of hands. If I asked for a show of hands, I bet all the hands would go up. If I asked you, Can you wait for it to all be over? The pandemic, the protests, the financial challenges, the situations in your life. You can't wait for it all to be over so we can get from here to there. Yeah, I know I'm not the only one. So I want to share a story with you before I begin unpacking this idea with you. Before I, um, well, how far back do I go? Do you want my life story? So I was invited to apply for a job at Unity Village when I had returned to the UK after ordination. It was a job in the retreats department to run the retreat department as its manager. So I applied and was accepted. The position was offered to me and I accepted the position. Okay, so I had just recently come back from the US from attending seminary. So when it came to the visa, we thought it was going to be a slam dunk, okay? Because I'd lived in the States, I'd studied in the States, I stayed on for an extra year to complete my degree. And, so I was in the system. They knew who I was. And so when immigration said it would take 6 to 9 months, we poo-pooed that. They don't know divine order. They don't understand how truth works, is what we told ourselves. 3 months in, nothing, silence. And the thing with the immigration process is don't call us, we'll call you. So I was antsy because my life was on hold. I couldn't move forward. I couldn't take a job and do something else because I didn't know when they would call me or where I'd be in the process at any given time. There was nothing I could do. I was in limbo. So around that time, I had a hospital appointment out in Maidenhead, which is where the Unity headquarters was originally stationed in the UK. So near there, I had a hospital appointment. And I distinctly remember walking out from that appointment and walking down the road. We walk everywhere in England. We don't drive as much. So I remember walking back to the station and I was having a conversation with God and calling forth my angels. I wanted clarity. I wanted a sign. Please tell me, if this is worth pursuing, if this is going to happen. And if it's not going to happen, then let me know that too, so that I can get on with my life. Yes, I'd be disappointed about not going, but I can't stay in limbo like this, as I said, 3 months in. As I was walking down the street, I noticed this woman standing on the sidewalk. There's something about her that just caught my attention. She seemed to be dressed in, I couldn't tell if it was workout clothes or pajamas. And she seemed to be very antsy. She had her phone in one hand and her keys in the other. And as I got closer, I made up this story in my head about what was going on. I made up this story that she looked like, maybe she'd had an argument with her boyfriend and rushed out the house. And the way she was pacing outside, was she trying to determine whether she should go back or was she waiting for him to come out to her? All this is running around in my head as I approach her and get closer and closer to her. But as I get closer, I see that she is anxious, she's in distress. So I stopped and asked if I could help. She had a very thick Eastern European accent. So when I asked if I could help, what I could discern was that she said, yes, please, my mother is hungover. And basically she was saying that somebody else came by and asked if they could help. And when she told them that her mother was hungover, they said they would call the ambulance. So I said, would you like me to wait with you for a little bit? And she said, yes. So we stood there and I made small talk with her, tried to, encourage and calm her down. But we'd been there about 5 minutes. No ambulance takes that long. So I said, are you sure they called the ambulance? And she said, yes. So I said, well, let me just call dispatch and find out how long they expect this ambulance to take before it arrives. So I made the call to 911, no, 999 in England. So I made the emergency call, and dispatch said no, there had been no such call made. So then I told them the situation, and they said, well, could I go into the house with the young lady and see what was going on? So I said yes. So she freaked out when I said, let's go back into the house. I said, no, I'm with you. It's okay. So she said, my mother's hungover. My mother's hungover. So I said, that's okay. Let's go. So we went in and she was shaking as she opened the door. And when the door opened, there was a staircase that led through the house that was very visible from the front door. And her mother had committed suicide and hung herself from the stairs. She wasn't hung over, she had committed suicide. And so when this young lady woke up and came down the stairs, that's what she found. And so she ran outside. I immediately went into ministerial role. I was on the phone with this dispatch, explaining what I could see, telling them what was going on. Dispatch asked if I could, remove the person. I said no, I couldn't handle that, but she was obviously deceased, and questioning the young lady, what does she need, what does she see, what happened. Dispatchers encouraging us that the police will be there, the ambulance will be there. Then we hear the sirens coming, which we were expecting when we were standing outside. Sirens coming from everywhere. Whoa, 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 whoa. Here they were. Police showed up, ambulance showed up. And I'm in my space, I'm centered, I'm poised, I'm 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 on it, really there for this young lady, really there in this present to this situation. The police questioned me. I told them, who I was and I was passing and how I'd helped and what I'd seen when I opened the door and all of that. They took my details and then they said I was free to go. So I wished the young lady well and prayed with her silently and quickly, and then I left her with the authorities. I was about 5 minutes away from the Unity Maidenhead headquarters, and I went over there and I went to the prayer room and I lost it. I mean, okay, I wasn't ministerial anymore. I was boohooing. I was in shock. I was devastated. I was having such great empathy for this young lady and what she had discovered and how her life had been turned upside down. I, wow. So it took me the rest of the day to get recentered, and I still had to get my journey back to London, be on the train, all of that. I called a couple of friends who helped me, listen to me, share from my place of shock and overwhelm. And then I remember waking up that next morning and journaling what had just happened, what happened between leaving the hospital and meeting this young lady on the street, and how I was praying. And was there an answer in that prayer somewhere that happened between the hospital and that encounter with that young lady and what we discovered in the house? So I remember journaling, and this is the footnote that was in my journal. Remember, we're talking about, are we there yet? It wasn't about when I would move to the USA to take up my new position. It's about being present here and now. It's about being a minister now and not waiting until my arrival at Unity Village. That situation would take care of itself. Meanwhile, there is important work for me to do right here, right now. Oftentimes, when we are in a waiting, holding pattern, we get very impatient. We want it to be over. We want to move to the next thing. I remember when the pandemic started and we were told it would be 2 weeks of lockdown. And it went on and on and on. And for you, dear people in New York, it went on even longer and is probably continuing in some places. And I'm sure there are lots of you who just want your life back, who just want things to go back to how it was, or to get out of this isolation, this lockdown, this experience. But maybe there are other things that we want to get out of, that we're in a waiting, holding pattern. What is that in your life if it's more than the pandemic? Like I said, maybe we're wanting the injustice and inequality to end now. Maybe there are financial challenges, possibly as a result of the pandemic or that was happening before and has been exacerbated. Situations in our life, we just want them over now. Inharmonious relationships, quarrels with family members that we want healed now. Other situations, I can't know exactly what's going on in your life, but I can bet that there's something that we want to be over so we can move from here and this discomfort to there, the next thing, the future, being out of it, being out of the waiting and the holding pattern. But do you know the waiting and the holding pattern has gifts in it? There's an author, E.L. Doctorow, who says, sometimes we can only see a little bit of the way at a time. She says, it's like driving at night with the headlights on. You can only see a little ways ahead of you, but you can make the whole journey that way. So if you're a driver, you know what we're talking about. Once you've got your headlights on, you see so many feet in front of you, but mile by mile, you'll get where you're going with that much vision, with that much knowing, with that much um, optics on the road ahead of you. And I think it was Martin Luther King who also said, we don't need to see the whole staircase, we just need to see the next step. But that's a challenge for some of us sometimes, right? We want the big picture. I'll speak for myself in that particular waiting game. And by the way, that 3 months was just the first 3 months of 18. It took 18 months to process my visa for me to come to America to take up my position as the manager at Unity Village. More about that in a moment. So there's a teacher of mine, Reverend Tom Thorpe, when I was in seminary, and he had this saying, which I love. It was show up, pay attention, and respond in love. Show up, pay attention, and respond in love. So sometimes when we're in this holding pattern, in this waiting game, in this hallway where the door has closed behind us behind one thing, but there's nothing, the door hasn't opened yet for the thing that we're moving towards. So we find ourselves in this hallway passageway. When we're in that place, we can show up with whatever's in front of us and whoever is in front of us. We can show up and pay attention. We can show up, pay attention, and respond in love. So let's take the first of those, show up. Tom Thorpe has a book out himself. It's called Through a Loving Lens, Gentle Observations About Life, Love, and God. And he says this about showing up. Showing up puts us in a space where we are present to people we meet and the situations we face. The paying attention helps us see the person or the situation more clearly. The final step, which we'll come to shortly, responding in love, helps us determine what action we shall take. So we show up and pay attention to whoever is in front of us. Now, when I was walking down that street from the hospital going back to the train station in Maidenhead, I could have gone on with that story that I was narrating in my head about this unusual behavior that I saw unraveling in front of me with this young lady, not understanding what was going on with her. And I could have just said hello and walked by and left her there in distress. And everybody walking by, because they couldn't understand her accent and she misspoke about what she was trying to explain, would have just left her there in her distress. You have to see who's in front of you, even in this time where we're not necessarily physically in contact with each other. There are people right in front of us that we need to be present to and be paying attention to. So we show up mindfully, alert, aware of what's happening around us and to the people in our circle around us. And not just in our circle, but beyond that. And then we come to pay attention. And that's about not rushing the process. Yeah, 18 months is a long time to be told not to rush the process. And why are they waiting? What do they think I'm going to do when I get there that they're waiting this long? Ah, don't rush the process. There is a gift in the hallway experience. Ellen Davenport, who is the vice president at Unity Village for Communications, has a book out and it's called Hell in the Hallway, Light at the Door. And I love that book. Okay, so I don't love the hallway experience that she's relating to, but I love how she lays this out and makes it really clear what some of the processes are while we're in our hallway experience, what some of the gifts are, and how trying to rush through it, we can miss things. So there's always a gift, and it's always deeply personal to each of us. And then there's a spiritual component, a spiritual gift too. But because we're in this rush to get out, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Is it over yet? We miss the spiritual blessings and benefits too. So one of the opportunities that the pandemic and lockdown gave so many of us was new blessings and benefits, more time for our spiritual practice, more time for our meditation, for our spiritual reading, more time with family to connect with loved ones. But maybe we didn't use that time, because sometimes what happens is we push away the very tool, the very object that will help us through the experience. We push it away. It's like, I've got all this time. When I wasn't meditating, I kept saying, or we would keep saying, if I only had time, I would meditate. If I only had time, I would spend more time in prayer. If I only had time, I'd connect more deeply with God. And now we have the time, we're frustrated and impatient, and it's like, oh, I'm not in the mood now. I just want this to be over. I just want to go back to work. I just want to go back to the store. I want to go to the beach. I want to go back to my new normal. Well, that's the thing. It is a new normal. It's not going to be how it ever was before. I read an article in the Financial Times. It's a backdated article, but this is what caught my eye by the author who wrote it, Arundhati Roy. She's a writer, essayist, and activist. And she said, nothing could be worse than a return to normality. And she's speaking here specifically about the pandemic. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. She says, we can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks, and our dead ideas, and our dead rivers, and our smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. So what this means is we have to, not have to, I would encourage us and invite us to be present to what is in the hallway that wants to be the gift for us. Instead of focusing on the future that we can't get to, it's never going to arrive, we be present. And that's really the core of what we're talking about today, is being present in the present moment to what's in front of us. And our meditation, mindfulness, and prayer practices will support us in doing that. There is strength in stillness, but you have to practice. There is strength in stillness, resilience in stillness, healing in stillness, answers in stillness, but we're usually pushing it away because we want to get over there. I don't want to be here, I want to be there. But what if we were to bloom where we are planted? What if we were to grow in the soil in which we find ourselves and not be so focused on what's ahead of us? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just inviting us into another way of being in the midst of it. So fast forward to my story when, as I said, it took 18 months for me to finally get to Unity Village. And there was a blessing in it, even though things didn't work out how I planned, because 18 months, the world changes, things change. So by the time I arrived, everything at Unity Village and in the retreats department had changed, and it was not quite the same place to work as it had been when I was offered the job. The job wasn't even quite the same as when I was offered the job. And I was not in my right place anymore for if I had arrived in those 3 months. And so that was a catalyst for me finding my way to Touching the Stillness ministries that I have created, and to my podcast, Touching the Stillness, and every blessing that came from that. But because the timing was altered and I had that wait and I was in the hallway and then I came out and got where I was going, finally I'm there, but I'm not there. It's a new normal, as Arundhati Roy says. It was a completely different scenario, but it was responsible for leading me there and here with you today. The scripture that you heard today says, "They that wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall rise up with wings like eagles. They shall walk and not be weary. They shall run and not faint." And then there's a song that says, it has a line in it that says, "Teach me, Lord, to wait. Teach me, Lord, to wait." And in Hebrew, I understand that the word wait means entwined with God. Entwined with God. So change the perspective of where we are and we can't move and we don't want to be here. Don't want to be here anymore in whatever that situation is. And I want to be over there. I want to be with what's next. Re-envision that, reimagine yourself in that space of waiting, in that hallway. Imagine yourself entwined with God. So are we there yet? If you take off the T, the question becomes, are we here yet? So we show up, we pay attention, and we respond in love. We're going to take this idea into our meditation today. And so I invite you to take a deep breath and readjust your position wherever you are so you can become comfortable. And if you're okay doing so, just lower your eyelids and close your eyes. But if you feel like that might make you sleepy and you'll fall asleep, then keep your eyes open. Maybe focus on the candle behind me as your focus point. Otherwise, let us breathe into this idea of, are we here yet? Instead of, are we there yet? Notice your breath as it flows in and flows out without trying to change anything. Maybe your breath is shallow and coming from your chest because you feel some anxiety about being in the situation in which you find yourself. That's understandable. So have compassion for yourself as you take in another breath and see if you can breathe into your belly. The way that you know that you're breathing into your belly is that it will push forward as the breath comes in. and draw back as the breath flows out. When we are breathing this deep diaphragmatical breath, we are taking in all the air and filling our lungs to capacity, which calms us. Otherwise, we are in flight or fright mode, wanting to be somewhere else, wanting to fight or struggle with what is. So as we breathe deeply, we invoke the relaxation response. So let that breath flow in now. Let that breath relax you now, and be here now with the breath. And if the mind wanders, as it's its job to do, then have peace with that, compassion with yourself, as you gently, time and again, bring your attention back to the present moment. Show up for yourself in this now moment. Pay attention in this now moment. Pay attention to everything you are feeling and experiencing in your body. What are the sensations and where in your body are you experiencing them? Is there any pain? Are there twinges? Is there tingling? Are you hot, warm, cool? What's the air like as it touches your skin? Feel the clothes on your back. Even with your eyes closed, notice the sounds around you. And then bring your attention back to the breath and notice if the breathing pattern has changed as you've relaxed. Maybe just allow your shoulders to fall a little bit more from around your ears. Maybe rest your hands in your lap so that your shoulders and your elbows can relax. And just breathe here, be here now, in a self-induced hallway where we've closed the door to outer distractions, where we are not concerned with what's beyond the door, knowing that there is light there, knowing there is a gift there. We are present here. Here in this hallway, we trust God. We trust the work of God. We trust the timing. We are right here in our right place. And so we bloom where we are planted. We release our impatience, the need to skip steps along the way, leave parts out so that we can leave here and be there. But every stage of the process holds a gift for us. So as we breathe deeply, relax deeply, tune tune our heart and attention to the divine. Let us respond in love as we listen, to be guided and directed in understanding what gift this waiting, holding pattern has for each of us individually, each of us collectively. As we listen in the stillness, pay attention and be alert to that which we are equipped with, equipped to do, equipped to manage and handle and face in the face of our new normal. As we breathe in, breathe out, and rest in the stillness of the silence. And now we begin our journey in consciousness back to this time and place. But don't rush the process. Breathe your way back slowly and deliberately. And imagine in your mind's eye that there is a glimmer in front of you, like light coming from under a doorway. As we leave this intentional hallway, this intentional holding place, this waiting place, this place of peace. The doorway in front of us begins to nudge open, and light begins to stream in, warming the space, warming our hearts, opening us up to what's next. Now that we have been fortified by the stillness, strengthened by the silence. Become aware once more of your position in your seat, the furniture and furnishings around you, the clothes on you, the thoughts flowing through you, the breath of God breathing you, healing you, supporting and uplifting you, so that you can walk through that door to the new normal, ready to respond in love, which calls for action, which calls for seeing those in front of us, which calls for seeing the circumstances hold a gift and a blessing. One more deep breath in, hold that breath and exhale. One more time, a deep breath in, hold the breath and exhale. And now bring your attention up behind the back of your eyes and just hold your attention here as you breathe deeply. One more reminder to continue calling your attention back from the future to be here now. And I leave this quote with you as we end our meditation today, which comes from Mother Teresa. Let this word inspire your next action. Go out into the world today and love the people you meet. Let your presence light new light in the hearts of others. And now as we open our eyes, we imagine we are stepping into the light of the new, into the light of now. Namaste.